Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalam ala rasulillah. Assalamu alaikum, everybody.
Walaikum salam.
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
So the last time we were here, we spoke about the struggle that sisters have with hijab, the mentalities that we see today, and the conditioning that some of us fall for or have fallen for. We had some technical issues last time, so inshallah we're not going to have that today. We'll make dua. I'll make it easy, I mean. But we just wanted, I think the goal today is to just target it from a little bit of a different angle, I guess, but we'll see how the conversation flows. Allah Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala says in the Quran, indeed, in the Messenger of Allah, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, you have an excellent example for whoever has hope in Allah and the last day and remembers Allah often. I think I wanted to start by recognizing that, you know, we're here for a reason. This conversation and advice or anything that we say here, it's here to help us first.
Exactly. There's a lot of benefits in discussing such an important topic, because even one of my favorite content creators recently came out against Islam. I didn't know she had that feeling inside, and she attacked the hijab in one of her long rants. And so that was very disappointing. When people come out for Zionism and against Islam, it's sometimes you don't expect it.
It's so funny that you started with that. And I was thinking about how to start the conversation today. I wanted to start with the current climate, the situation that's going on to now. May Allah make the Muslims successful, and may Allah grant those who are afflicted with oppression, make it easy for them and grant them victory. I mean, I think, you know, it's this time more than ever that our perspective should be on point. Like I was speaking to somebody the other day, and I was like, you know, my view of the world, my view of people, my view of myself, and the importance for me to have really solid goals and a really solid direction towards them. Like my view of things will never be the same. Never. You know, this is a test for our ummah. This really needs to be the shake that wakes us up and, you know, sort of reinforces what we are doing and why we're here and who is our priority and where it is we're going. For our desires to still be stumping our progression to an extent where people can't even recognize that we're Muslim. Like, this is crazy. Like, this is insane at this point. Like, the life right now should teach us otherwise. So I thought maybe that we could go into this conversation today focusing on perspective and accountability. I mean, we see lots of talks about hijab online, right? Yeah. And a lot of them are for brothers. Not that I have a problem with that. I absolutely do not. And I think any sister who criticises men for speaking about hijab really is missing the point hugely. But there's a lot of soft-spoken hijab videos, and they have their place, and we should advise with sort of dignity and honour. But we also have to, you know, have a reality check as well. Like, there has to be accountability. We have a duty to ourselves to look after ourselves. We have a duty to each other to look after each other. And sometimes that means, you know, having conversations that people don't want to hear. You know, so
that's true.
Yeah.
Accountability for hijab, you mean as in the woman's accountability before Allah Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala on Judgment Day, or like accountability for her own inequities? Can you clarify?
Well, a bit of everything. I guess it's looking at accountability in the sense of, like, instead of getting defensive, just pull your socks up. We say pull your socks up or pull your sleeves up. I don't know whatever term, and just get on with it. Just get on with life. It's not even just solely about hijab now. There's so many other things that we're lacking in, and men as well with their issues as well. Like, there's so many of us are lacking. So it's like, okay, now we need to fix up. There's no time. There's no time left, ladies. The time is almost near. Like, we need to fix up now.
Yes, and accountability, I think, also bleeds into accountabilities in our own lack of control with the male gaze. Because I feel like there are some women who think the only thing they have to kind of offer a man is their beauty. So by covering their beauty, they feel like they don't have an identity anymore. They see the hijab as something that removes their identity, whereas I would argue it enhances it, because now a person isn't distracted by your beauty. Because if you notice, sometimes when women argue, like before, like when I was in high school, or you see an example, girls will go after each other's looks first before the argument. Now the hijab, the niqab, and the burqa, they make you have to, they deny your eyes the critical meanness. You know what I'm trying to say? I can't see your imperfections. With a lot of like occultic women, they use their allure to win the argument. Like really beautiful women can sometimes think their beauty, it's like a force that you have to submit to. You know what I mean? The sort of diva-ness. And so I think the hijab for some women becomes a sensitive topic because they think they'll lose their leverage by covering up. They don't want to have to be talked to in a certain way that doesn't give them a hegemonic energy. Do you know what I mean? This is really deep psychologically, because I ask myself, why are they so afraid of this hijab? Why are they so disgusted by women deciding to break free of this sort of male phallus culture? Like, why are they so angry at that? Why do they feel the need to like make all women have to be these sort of beings for the visual entertainment of men? Because the hijab is a rebellion against hedonism. That's why they have to constantly attack it as some form of slavery or oppression or degradation, because they know that there's power in a woman denying other people the visual pleasure. So when a woman has broken free from that sort of fenced-in perspective, they have to sort of make this propaganda of, look at the ISIS brides, look at this. Like, they have to constantly find these superficial ways to attack it. So this conversation is very deep. And I think that a woman has to take accountability for why is she so afraid to, I don't want to say retire her beauty from the public market, but I'd say, why is she so afraid of not having this sort of exoticness?
It's validation is what they're looking for. So why do you need it from the people? That's what we should be thinking about as Muslims.
Yes.
We might have the desire to have that validation, but when we look at the Prophet ﷺ as the example, or the Sahaba, or the Sahabiyat, they were very firm on seeking Allah Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala. We really need to get over that needing somebody to approve your image or your being for you to find your place in this world. Like, the world is definitely not worth it in that sense. You should care to an extent where you have dignity and honor for yourself, so you have self-respect, but you shouldn't care to the extent where you're willing to give up your principles and values to be able to get really superficial and scrape the surface approval. Yeah,
very good point. I totally agree. What do you think, Sister Samar, about our points?
Yeah, mashallah, I do agree with them, and I like what you brought up about the the West having this attack against the Muslim women, and but at the same time there's a hypocrisy in it, because they know that the way that they're controlling women through this kind of superficial ideas of beauty. And I was talking about this with my husband the other day as well, actually, but I was talking about how even in Islam, yes, okay, we've been ordered to wear the hijab, and we know that it's a command from Allah. And I've had sisters message me on Instagram sometimes and say that, well, they don't think that they're good looking, and they don't have nice hair either, so they don't feel the need to really wear the hijab or the jilbab or anything that will cover themselves, but they would still wear modest clothes, but they just feel like, well, they're not what anybody would consider good looking. And I said, but that's not the point. Allah's commanded the hijab. He didn't say, oh, good looking sisters. It's not. It says Muslim women, like, so you can be recognized as Muslim women. So this is what's important as well, because I think that a lot of the time hijab can be described as something often, oh, well, sisters, it's supposed to make you disappear. No, actually, it's not supposed to make you disappear. That's when a man looks in our direction, I have to treat this woman a certain way. Why? Because she's a Muslim woman. So Allah has given us status as Muslim women.
It's interesting that you brought up the disappearing part, because I think there's multiple ways you can examine the disappearing part. You're seen for your piety, for we're believers, but you disappear from the evil eye of the male gaze, I'd argue. You disappear from vanity, I'd argue. So there's like, you disappear, but you appear in a way.
Actually, I had a debate with my boss the day I got interviewed about niqab. She actually was a Muslim who didn't cover at all. She was really disturbed by the fact that I was wearing niqab, and we ended up having this debate. And a part of it was that barrier. She was like, I don't want you to wear the face veil because it's a barrier. And she's like, you tell me it isn't a barrier, and I was like, well, it is, and it isn't. There is an element of concealing and covering and hiding, absolutely. But does it prevent me from doing my job? Is it a barrier to my job? Absolutely not. You know, like,
Good
so
point.
it depends on the context, you know. Is it to conceal and cover and to hide me from, like you said, the male gaze, and from that really superficial level of validation? Absolutely. At the same time, does that mean that I don't exist? No, I'm absolutely here, and Inshā'Allāh, I'm trying to do my part in the world to make it a better place. So, you know, may Allah make it easy.
Yes, I'll make it easy. MashaAllah. That's interesting. So many people see the face veil as like an affront, as something like a barrier to be broken down. When you think about the word barrier, it's important because you keep things in and you keep things out, right? That's the function of a barrier. So if someone talks to you and says, you know, your face veil is a barrier, if they're intelligent, you know, and you can prompt them and say, what am I trying to keep in and what am I trying to keep out?
This is the thing that bothers me about the second-class citizen, you know, comment, and I got it a lot. See, when I told people I was converting, they were like, what, you're going to become a second-class citizen? And it's just like, well, if you only knew, Islam gives the person more than what it's been taught in this world. It teaches us that we are more than just this sort of false beauty standard. We're more than this, and we should be treated as such. All this stuff is extremely important, and it's where the non-Muslim mentality and life and people are missing out on. And I'm not saying that we as Muslims are perfect, but we definitely have the perfect to be able to be the most perfect that we can be. Does that make sense? I think the problem that we have is that more sisters need to study the topic of hijab. The reason why we have this widespread ignorance is because we have people who haven't studied it telling people what hijab is, and then that has a ripple effect. It fans out to the point where even reverts get the wrong information. I don't know about you, but the principles I initially got taught about hijab were not the ones that I studied in the fiqh of hijab, you know. So I think this is a really important point that we have to remember, is that even though, especially as reverts, we can have friends who share their thoughts and opinions and all these different things, or influencers, like you said, that share their thoughts and opinions. But the point I'm making is you are responsible for yourself. This is your journey to, Inshā'Allāh, Jannah. So you're not going to be able to say, well, this person told me that and that is enough. Like, to an extent, you might have that excuse that, like, if you're a new revert, whoever you're around might, but at some point, you know, you have to take accountability for yourself. You cannot just sort of take people's interpretation. You have to go back to the sources. Like, this is fundamental. You don't know where you go to find things out. You need to ask questions. You need to go to the places you're more likely to get the right answers for, like the masjid, like imams, not just, you know, your friend or an influencer. We're never going to have our problems resolved the more we try and take shortcuts to our way of life or shortcuts to our goals, you know, like we think there's a shortcut to Jannah.
Powerful step for a sister when she converts is to cover her hair. You are doing a good deed because you have tried your level best and you're working on it. Even if you're still afraid to wear a niqab, you are on your way. You're doing great, right? And it's amazing. I have just so much respect for sisters who cover. It's unbelievable sometimes how much I just am so proud of them and motivated, and it breaks my heart that there are so many sisters who are attacked for wearing it and they face so much stigma. And subhanAllah, it's really made me think our conversation has covered so many different angles. And listening to you just made me realize, like, us talking about the hijab, you know, it's amazing because it's under attack brutally. And I hope that the sisters see this and they get motivated. And man,
yeah, I totally agree, subhanAllah. Like, it's, I don't know, I think that just now the time that we're living in, as Milan was saying, it's like so testing, and it's like it just shows, you know, it's the opportunity for people to really like show who they are, or for people to realize who people are. Do you know what I mean? Like when you're in these kind of extreme circumstances, your beliefs, I think they become reaffirmed. Whatever they are, they become reaffirmed. And I think there's, you know, that I've seen that there's so many people becoming Muslim now, like since the whole thing's been happening in Palestine and everything. And you know, people are just inspired. And one of the things, I saw a video, and a sister, she was sitting in her house with her children, and in Palestine, right? So she's in Gaza. She's sitting with her kids, and you know, she's got her full hijab on, like you know, the ones that you pray in at home and stuff, that prayer jilbab that, you know, we usually have them praying. She was wearing that, and she said, you know, we stay like this all the time. We, you know, because, you know, we spend the whole day reading Quran, doing dhikr, because we don't know when the bomb is going to come. We don't know what's going to happen. She was telling people like, oh, don't worry about us, we're fine. You know, and obviously that she's like, you know, showing that she's prepared for death, basically, like any time. And for her, that meant that yes, of course, she's going to be always wearing her hijab, her full hijab, because obviously, you know, if anything's going to happen, she doesn't want to be found, you know, unclothed. You know what I mean? Not dressed appropriately. So it's fun, like, just like, you know,
that's powerful, man. That made me feel something when you said that.
It just puts things, Subhanallah, it just puts things into perspective. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, you know, like, because the way that we die, we're going to be raised like that on the day of judgment, subhanallah. So, you know, I just think, like, for every sister who's having that challenge to actually just put her hijab on, or like she's feeling like, oh, well, I want to get this job, should I wear hijab or not? And, you know, or she doesn't want to wear the hijab because she thinks it's going to restrict her, you know, opportunities in life. You know, there's nothing that you will get in life that wasn't already decreed for you. Okay, anything that you don't get because of your religion, it wasn't good for you anyways. That's what you need to understand and accept. You know, it's Allah Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala. He's the one, Ar-Razaq, he's the one that's giving you the risk. It's not your employer at your job, it's not your parents, it's Allah. So you need to try to have that tawakkul in Allah, that he's the one that's going to be providing you whatever the situation. Like, you're not going to experience those like blessings as you would experience them, you know, having that kind of faith. You know, obviously Allah blesses people whether they have faith or not, but you know, when you know that you've really left everything completely for Allah Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala, do you know what I mean? Like, this is just something like it just helps to reaffirm your faith so much more, you know, and it makes you stronger as well in your beliefs. So I think, subhanAllah, sisters, we need to think, like, how do we want Allah to, like, take our souls? Do you know what I mean? In his obedience or in his disobedience? It's a small thing. When you really put it in perspective, and that's why we just have to think about death all the time. Do you know what I mean? If we focus more on the fact that, you know, we could die at any moment, which we can, like, it just makes you, like, really just put things in that perspective. We need to know how to prioritize, and I think we've lost that because, you know, the Western world and that kind of capitalist culture has got us always constantly, like, you know, wake up in the morning, your first thought in your mind, oh, money, you know, I need to pay for this bill, I need to buy this food, I need to get this for my child, I need to, you know, you're thinking all the time about money when you wake up, you know, instead of thinking about Allah. Like, how many of us, when we wake up in the morning, like, remember to make the dua, like, thanking Allah that he's returned our souls to our bodies? We have these du'as and we're supposed to use them. It's to remind us and to show us that, you know, we're thankful to Allah. And I remember that there's a sheikh, he was saying that, you know, like, there's two rak'ah you can pray after the sun has risen, Salatul Duha, and that 2 rak'ah is like, when you pray, it's you're thanking Allah for the fact that he's given you a body. Do you know what I mean? This 2 rak'ah, Allah's given us so much more than that as well. Do you know what I mean? Like, you could go on forever just talking about the human body and, you know, faculties. And if you experience the smallest bit of pain, or like even just getting a cold, and your nose is blocked, for example. When your nose is blocked and you can't breathe, this nose that is on my face, that I'm taking in this oxygen and breathing out without thinking 99% of the time of my life. When I've got the cold, it's like, that's when you realize that you have a nose on your face, and then it's there to perform a function. It's not there just for beauty and to make you look nice. It has a function. Do you know what I mean? When you're inconvenienced by these sicknesses or illnesses, that's when you really, like, subhanAllah, that's why even the sickness that we get is a blessing. It's a blessing. Wallahi, it's a blessing, because it's only when you get these sicknesses that Allah's telling you to reflect, look what I'm giving you. When you don't have it, that's when you realize that you don't need it so much. You're so dependent, you're so fragile, you know. SubhanAllah.
I also wanted to touch on a point that Summer said, because I know that we need to go soon, so I just want to keep on top of that. But Summer mentioned, you know, the women, our sisters in Palestine, and how they were sleeping with their full hijab because, you know, just in case if anything were to happen. You could argue that these are the times where it would be understandable why they wouldn't uphold hijab, but look at the mentality. Like, we have to really observe, analyze that, and think about why they are doing it, why they are so firm on adhering to the Quran and Sunnah at this time. And it's because they have seen the harsh realities and tests that come with this life,
Mhm.
and their perspective
Exactly.
is now clear. You know, we to an extent are still distracted. We, subhanAllah, we see everything that's going on through the news, and some of it is so utterly heartbreaking, unimaginable. I can't imagine witnessing it firsthand. I really, really can. And may Allah reward them and elevate them in this life and the next. But they still do it with dignity and honour, so much so, like you said, that people are actually looking into Islam out of pure admiration for that strength and faith and iman and belief. And this is really, really something that we can take from the current climate. Like I said in the beginning, at this time more than anything else, we should be adhering to or striving to be our best in implementing the Quran and the Sunnah.
For me, that what I would just say finally is just, you know, kind of reiterating what I was saying before about knowing how to prioritize your life in general, because the priority of life is the fact that we're going to die at any time, at any given moment. We don't know when that's going to be. So if that's what you need to really push you to obey Allah, like, let it be that. Because I know some people, they obey Allah out of love. Some of us obey Allah out of fear, and there's nothing wrong with that. The objective is that we obey Allah, and that, you know, Inshā'Allāh, Allah will accept our deeds from us. That's what we need to do. We all need to have that hope. We need to have that hope that through our love of Allah, through our fear of Allah, that, you know, He will forgive us, He'll have mercy upon us, and Inshā'Allāh, you know, accepts us and let us into Jannah. That's what we need. Like, that's what we want. SubhanAllah. So yeah, that's basically what it is, you know. And for those sisters who are really like desperately struggling with putting the hijab on, and they feel like it's really something they can't do right now, just do your best as much as possible to have the intention, at least, to do it as soon as you can. And secondly, I would advise them to, as much as possible, do other good deeds in order to try to, you know, expiate for, you know, the sin of not wearing the hijab.
I really hope some sisters see the wisdom of all the different perspectives that we brought on the hijab. May Allah make it easy for you, and keep going on your journey. And there's a lot of beautiful hijab poetry out there. I try to write some, and so consider it. And Niqabi Diaries has a long series where she talks to other sisters, and that's also a resource for you. And we're all three of us are people who create content that promotes the hijab. So check it out and take care. MashaAllah. Alaikum salam.
Take care, sister. Just to finish, I would like to touch on that, you know, see, as long as you have breath and as long as you have awareness of Allah, there's hope. You know, like that alone is enough to know that Allah wants good for you, and Allah's giving you the opportunity to look out for yourself and to right by yourself. You are most definitely worth it. Try your best, strive, and Inshā'Allāh, may Allah guide us. Ameen.
Ameen.
If there's anything in this video that we have said that is wrong, then it's from us and our limitations. The need for knowledge and any good is from Allah Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala.
سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك.
Assalamu alaikum.